So now that we have opened the request and then sent that request, we need to wait for the response. So again, the process is first open the request, or make that request. I should say make or open first. First we open, and then the second thing is that we send that request, send request, and finally we wait for the request. So how can we wait for the response? How can we wait for the response and get that response? So in order to do that in AJAX, we need to call we need to use what's called the onReady state change. So here I'm going to say HTTP request and then onReady state change. And this, basically what this is going to do is that this is going to be wait for the response. And whenever we have a response, you can call whatever function you want to get that response and get that data from the server. So this is kind of waiting status. Here you are kind of waiting, and then you are telling AJAX, hey AJAX, whenever you have data, I want you to call this function. So here equals to, it should be the function that you want to call once the response is available. So whenever we have a response, we can call any function we want. So I'm going to add this comment here at the top. Above this, I'm going to say this, the function that you want to call. So here you need to create a function. Let me here create a function. I'm going to create here a function. I'm going to say here function, and then I'm going to say response, or AJAX response. So here we need to call this function here. So here I'm going to say AJAX response, meaning that whenever the ready state, whenever the waiting period is up and the data is available, then we can call this function. So this function is going to contain this function. Let me add the comment here above the function. This function contains both the status and the content or data. So this function is going to tell you whether the request has been executed successfully or not, and if it has been executed successfully, it's going to return data. So here we can first check. First we check in this function the status, and then so first we check, and then we get the data. In case of success, we get data. Pretty simple. So how can we check the status of the request? Well, to do that, we use if statement, because depending upon that status, we are going to be doing different things. So if the status is complete, if the status is success, if the status is failed, we need to do different things according to that status. So to check the status, we say here HTTP request. What is this HTTP request? Remember this. It's this object. This is why I told you earlier that this object is going to be used for pretty much everything. This object is the core of AJAX. Whenever you want to do anything related to AJAX, you are going to be using this HTTP request. So this HTTP request contains the status, the status code of the response. So here I'm going to say status, which is a property inside this HTTP request, and this status can be a number with 3 digits. So that number can be The status can be 200, it can be 400, it can be 401, it can be 201, it can be 500. All these are called response codes. So these are called response codes. These codes are the most common. There are many response codes, but these are the most common. 200 basically is success. 400 is in case we have a failure, we use 400, and also 401 in case we cannot authorization failed. But both 400 and 401 means that data is not available. 201 means that the request was successful, but there is no data. 500 in case we have internal server error. So the most common one that you are going to be using is 200. Else, all these cases, in all other cases, you don't have data. So you don't have to check for each single code at a time. Instead, you can simply say else, and then here consider this else failure. Because in all these cases, it doesn't matter what happened, but it doesn't matter what happened, but we don't have the data anyways. So we can consider all these cases as failure. And here success. So here success. So if we have, in case of success, we have data, here we can get the data. So here inside the success, we get data. And in case of failure, here too, we have no data.